Hey guys, how are you all doing? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto, that's Kurama extracted from him, part 1. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let's start the story. The entire Leaf village stood in waiting for their hero to return. The lone boy had defeated the godlike entity single-handedly. Pain. It was Pain who had killed the strongest shinobi in Konoha, one of the legendary Sanin Jiraiya. It should have been impossible to defeat him when Pain was decimating the forces of Konoha and had leveled the entire village with a single. The people's hopes of winning were crushed. But when Naruto had returned, defeating one of the Pains with a single blow, their hopes rose once again. They doubted once again when they saw a giant meteor in the sky, along with the nearly formed Kyuubi. When they heard he defeated Pain, they cheered briefly. But the pain of losing so many of their loved ones weighed them down. They were weak, with so many dead, surely another village would take advantage and destroy them. Their hopes were fully restored when the dead came back to life. Kusayu's explanation of Naruto's deed had explained their confusion. They cheered loudly, happily that their precious people were back. All because of the demon boy they all had hated once. Most of them at least. Now they patiently waited. Waiting for their hero to return. To return gracefully from somewhere beyond the forest. It did not happen, as a series of explosions was heard in the distance. Nearly the entire village watched as they saw an explosion go off in the distant hill. The comment from Shikaku and Inoichi very quickly spread throughout the large crowd. That's where Naruto went alone. Reverberated throughout the crowd. Quickly they reacted. Ninjas started sprinting towards the explosion that was seen. Villagers ran ahead, not caring if they could help or not. All were worried about the sudden explosion that was heard, that was in the direction where their hero once was. Despite her exhaustion and freshly healed injury, Hinata ran along with the force. She couldn't help but feel that something terrible had happened to him. Her fears grew, but she couldn't help but admire what was occurring before her eyes. Nearly the entirety of Konoha's ninja forces were attempting to reach him, trying to help him. Even civilians had run along but further back. Nearly all were exhausted, but they pushed themselves to run along, hoping that he was okay. Kakashi stood alone amongst the smoldering ruins. Numerous small fires caused by a jutsu were lit across the clearing, setting fire to several trees nearby. A large crater was depressed into the ground, reminiscent of a Rasen Shuriken blast. What happened here? He had come to pick up his student and had just left the village when the explosion occurred. He was far too weak to put up an actual fight, but he ran here anyway, worried about his student. He searched around, looking for any trace for his student. A shredded Akatsuki cloak was all he found. Gathering what little chakra he had left, he bit his thumb and did the necessary hand signs. Completing it, he slammed his hand into the ground. Summoning jutsu. Once the cloud of smoke dissipated, it revealed a pack of ninja dogs. Kakashi. Pakin questioned. Curious as to why he was in the flesh when they were informed moments ago of their summoner's death. Now's not the time, I need you to find Naruto as quickly as you can. Pakin came with me, Kakashi said desperately. He heard his tone and quickly spread out, already knowing of his scent. Kakashi held out a piece of the Akatsuki's robe to Pakin. Does it smell familiar? Pakin took a slight sniff. It smells like that man with the orange mask, he conducted. That's really bad. Kakashi said through clenched teeth, if he got Naruto he's already long gone. He clenched his fist in rage. Labored breathing took over him. Damn it, Kakashi yelled out. After his outburst he quickly got in control of himself. He couldn't let his emotions override him. There was still a chance that he could be saved if it was another who kidnapped him. Yet his doubts were still there. How could they find him? I could only hope it's not that man. He heard the arrival of several shinobi, with more arriving every other second. Kakashi-sensei. You need to hear this. Sakura yelled out. The pink-haired Kunoichi ran towards him as he was in the crater. A small slug on her shoulder was present. Lady Kusaya. Please explain quickly. Other ninjas quickly gathered around the two remaining members of Team 7, curious about the fate of Naruto Uzumaki. Of course, after talking, Naruto was attacked by a man with an orange mask. Kakashi closed his eyes in defeat. I'm not sure what quite happened, as my clone was quickly killed in the beginning of the fight, but being here she didn't finish it. We have to find him now, Kiba called out. We shouldn't have let him go alone, Niji yelled. Everyone quickly jumped to conclusions. Hearing their thoughts, Hinata felt a sense of dread overtake her. No. She felt tears starting to flow, her heart ached in pain. Her breathing quickened and she landed on her knees on the ground. Ten leaned over her, trying to comfort her. Calm down, everyone, this is no time to panic. Kakashi yelled out, calling the ninjas' attention. More ninja had quickly arrived and were wondering what had happened. Seeing Kakashi Haddock, a prominent ninja in the village, they flocked to him. Naruto is their target, and because he contains the Kyuubi, he's still alive. Hinata looked up hopefully at this information. She had to rescue him. No matter the cost. What should we do? Sakura asked. Worried sick, she knew they had little time. Tell me, Sakura, who's all coming here? Kakashi asked. Absolute authority in his voice. Finding Naruto was their top priority, but so was protecting the villagers from a dangerous man. Nearly the entire village, ninja and civilians, she said quickly. Damn it, Shikaku. He called out. He quickly appeared before him, waiting for what he had to say. We need to quickly gather any able-bodied sensory-type ninja to search around the area. They still might be around, he explained. Shikaku nodded at his orders as he had the same idea. Get into squads of 6 or more. We also need to get the civilians back into the village. It's not safe for them here, he ordered. Shikaku and Kakashi both ordered the other ninja, and they quickly complied, all eager to rescue their hero. More healthy and uninjured ninja quickly got into groups and dispersed around the areas. Other, more injured ninjas stayed behind to get the civilians back into the village. The groups were quickly dispersing. The battleground was quickly cleared of a ninja. Hinata walked up to a group consisting of Team Guy, Sakura, Kiba and Shino. Getting ready to go. Hinata, I can't let you go, Sakura said to her, seeing her trying to join them. What? Why not? She argued. She had as much right to save the boy she loved. She was about to argue more when she interrupted. You're still injured. You can't risk reopening your wound, she explained. She's right, Hinata-sama. You must rest. You can't help Naruto in your current state. Niji joined in. Hinata was hurt about what they had said, but she couldn't deny how true it was. Hinata hugged herself, bowing her head in chagrin and shame, tears spilling at her inability to help a loved one. She whimpered at their suggestions. I am too weak. More doubts started to delve in. Could they find him? She didn't know what she would do if he was never coming back. She felt a hand on her shoulder, Hinata, Sakura said, trying to soothe her. She didn't look up to face her. They didn't need to see her tears. We'll find Naruto, don't worry about it. She finished. Through her bangs, she was still able to. Sakura walked back to her group, leaving Hinata standing alone and declaring in despair. She clenched her fists in silent agony, her nails digging into her palms and drawing blood. More tears fell from her pale lavender eyes. As her sorrow built up, she fell to her knees and let her cries be heard. Naruto, I'm sorry I couldn't help, she cried out. Konan hid herself away from the one she recognized as Kakashi Haddock. Wrapped in her, she coated it in pheromones as he raced past her. She could only fool quick uncalculated looks and easily, as they mostly relied on their scent to track and alert. But if someone possessed or looked intently enough, she would be spotted. She could only hope luck would be on her side. Hearing numerous shouting, she saw numerous ninja race to where the one-eyed was. Luck seemed to be on her side, as numerous Byakugan-bearing ninja passed by her. Residue chakra must be clouding their vision, she formulated. It seemed luck was on her side. It was only because of Naruto that she survived, and it was because of her he was captured. I have to rescue him. She firmly believed he was the embodiment of Yuhiko and Nagato's dream, and he had to survive to fulfill those dreams. Nagato, in his dying breath, had placed his trust in Naruto for him to fulfill. She had to save him, simply because she believed in him too. As she was captured by the Konoha shinobi, she wouldn't be able to help him. She would be interrogated and the Kyuubi would be extracted from him, resulting in Naruto's death. As she heard shouting of orders, she carefully spied to take a route with no users. Even then she was no sensory-type ninja. She doubted she could escape in her weakened state, and all the ninja running about. More shinobi dispersed while she waited. She thought of the several places where the extraction would take place. She had to take a gamble to go to one of the hideouts. She looked around, seeing only a lone indigo-colored Kunoichi crying. Naruto. I'm sorry I couldn't help, Konan heard her say. Is she his lover? She remembered Nagato commenting about a girl interfering and unleashing the. It was just like this when my parents were killed. Love breeds sacrifice. Konan decided to take a gamble. She saw that she possessed a Byakugan. If she could convince the girl to come with her, she would be certain that they would be able to escape. Deactivating her, she slipped to the ground from the trees and quietly approached the grieving girl. She had to succeed, and she would greatly improve her chances if she persuaded the girl. She had stopped her sobbing, and Konan stopped a few steps behind her. Do you want to save Naruto-san? She asked the girl. She didn't reply. She didn't seem to acknowledge her. Her next words got her attention. Hinata kneeled down, her tears had stopped. She felt so powerless. She heard quiet steps from behind her. A feminine voice had called out to her, but she ignored her in her grieving. I know where he is, Hinata gasped, quickly raising and turning. What she saw greatly surprised her. She saw an indigo-haired Kunoichi, with the same height as Naruto, who wore a light blue origami flower in her hair. She had amber eyes and lavender eyeshadow. She wore dark blue tights, and what surprised her the most was the shredded black cloak with the red cloud pattern, signifying she was affiliated with the Akatsuki, the organization that had kidnapped Naruto. Hinata got ready for her gentle fist stance. I need your help to rescue Naruto-san, she said to Hinata. What? She asked, confused as to why she needed help since she was part of them. Both blue-haired Kunoichis stared at each other. Both eyes were calculating, looking for anything that they sought for. One for deceit, and one for a possible ally. Naruto-san and I were attacked by another individual that was part of the Akatsuki. She explained calmly. Hinata activated her intent on more answers and searching for any lies. Questions flowing into her mind, Hinata wondered why this individual would talk to her when she could have easily killed her. To rescue Naruto-kun, why the sudden change? Why do you want to rescue Naruto-kun? She asked firmly, all thoughts going to him. Her stutter didn't appear in any form. She needed to rescue him. I want to save him. He's the one who can bring peace to this world, she explained. Hinata noted how calm and serious she was. She didn't see any form of deceit with her. I believe he is the only one who can, but I need your help to save him. She finished. Hinata desperately wanted to save him. She'd do anything to save him. Seeing his bright smile strengthened her resolve. She saw the powers of the masked individual. He had disappeared without a trace, and Hinata could only guess he could go long distances. The tracking teams would never be able to find him. Do you know where Naruto-kun is? She asked. Conan saw the desperation in her eyes to save him. I might, but we must leave right away, and only us two, she explained. Hinata didn't hesitate to nod. We leave now, come, she mentioned to her, walking towards an area she noted that didn't carry any Byakugan users. Can you run? She asked. Seeing her blooded jacket with a hole through it. It was hit with one of Pain's rods. It mostly confirmed her thoughts. She noted it was healed with medical ninjutsu. Hi, I'll keep it up now. Hinata felt a bit of renewed energy flow through her, now that she had a real chance to save him. Not some false sense of hope. The woman in the robe nodded, and started running along through the forest. Hinata followed after and soon started running side by side. After they reached a comfortable but eager pace for them both, Conan spoke up. Because of the few remaining members of Akatsuki, I determined that we have about 6 days to rescue Naruto-san, before they extract the things that he holds within him. We can get to the location in 3 days with non-stop running, Conan explained to her. She doubted they would get there in 3 days. They would need a full day's rest at the least, and both were exhausted from today. Hi, if there is the slightest chance to save him, I'll take it, Hinata proclaimed. We'll take it, Conan corrected. But nodded in agreement otherwise. Of course, Hinata said. After a few moments, Hinata noticed she didn't know her name. What is your name? She questioned. Conan. My name is Hinata, Conan nodded. If they were going to spend several days together, they might as well know each other's name. If you don't mind me asking, Conan-san, why aren't we bringing anyone else along? Hinata asked. Conan looked at the younger Kunoichi running alongside her. She seemed to trust her but was genuinely curious as to why. Any larger would significantly lower our infiltration capability, and I already took a large risk trusting you since I might have been captured, she explained. She saw the teen nod in understanding. Unless you know of anyone else, she added. No, there's no one else, Hinata replied. She thought about who else would agree. She wondered if Sakura would have, except she was with a team who would undoubtedly refuse and stop them. Anyone else would have turned her in because they wouldn't trust her, and it would have resulted in Naruto's death. She swallowed the lump at the thought. We'll save him, stealing her resolve. Why would you trust me? She asked. Conan took a moment to reply. You tried to save him, and because you love him, didn't Hinata look slightly away from her? A bit uncomfortable that she figured out her feelings for him so fast. She answered nonetheless. Hi, I do, she confessed. They continued running ahead, and with Hinata's Byakugan, avoided other ninja. Then that is the reason, Conan replied calmly. Naruto saw whiteness though he was blinded by light, but he blinked and saw absolute nothingness. Despite this seeing nothing to be afraid of, he felt fear. He looked down at his hands to see if he was still there. His hands shook uncontrollably, his breathing took on a more labored state. Where was he? Why was he here? He started to panic and he wanted to yell out. Except, he knew there would be no one to answer him, because there was no one to see anymore. He wanted to run away from this nothingness. Except his legs didn't want to carry him forward, they refused him. At least he thought so. Was he moving? Or was he standing still? So Naruto was forced to look into the endless white abyss. How far could he see? Was there an end? Naruto could only hope there was one, giving up. He could only pray that someone would help him, save him from his loneliness, but he doubted it. Kakashi stood atop the monument, the day that had nearly ended since the disappearance of Naruto. The search around the village for any traces for him was called off hours ago. He looked down upon the reconstruction of the village. 24 buildings stood proudly, courtesy of Yamato. Hundreds of workers moved about working on dozens more. Kakashi removed the hit eye 8 from his left eye, and with his Sharingan eye, looked intently at the gloomy postures of numerous villagers, and the tense movement of ninja. The state of the village wasn't looking well. With Tsunade in a coma along with their hero missing, the village had a depressed air around it. I failed Minato-sensei gathering documents he had with him. He quickly knocked himself out of his brooding. Not yet, there's still a chance. He quickly traversed to the town site, ignoring how small that chance was. Heading towards his destination, which was outside of the epicenter of the reconstruction. Around where shinobi had set up their tents. He gathered inside a particular large tent. He saw numerous shinobi gathered within. The people gathered were squad leaders and those who personally knew Naruto. All anxiously waited for any new information regarding him, eager to set out to rescue him. A large round table sat in the center. Numerous captains sat around. Others sat away or close to the table. Kakashi guy called solemnly. He faced towards the entrance and was the first to notice him. He didn't go on about youth. He was now missing 2 of the students. Everyone in the tent turned to look. A wave of silence swept over the room. No one commented on him actually showing up early. Is this everyone? Kakashi said loudly. A tense atmosphere filled the tent, with the authority present in his voice. Everyone looked around to confirm. "We're missing Hinata-dan," Tenten added. She stood behind Guy along with her teammates. There's no way she would miss this. Kiba yelled out in exasperation. He had been looking for her everywhere, but he thought she would be here. Everyone had started to jump to conclusions. It would be beyond reckless trying to chase after him alone, Niji added in frustration. More bickering occurred over the friends of Hinata and Naruto. Sakura looked down sadly. Self-doubt started to plague her. She regretted leaving her alone. She knew the extent of Hinata's feelings, the distance she would go for him. It was proven earlier today. There's just no way she could find him, even I doubt we can. Enough. It's only been a few hours, and she could be somewhere alone, Shikamaru instructed. Breaking up the panicking of the surrounding ninja, Kakashi ignored their banter. "Let's begin. The Akatsuki were hunting and that includes our comrade Naruto," Kakashi started. Everyone listened intently. No words were spoken. "We have approximately 2.5 days before the extraction of the Kyuubi is completed. After that Naruto will die." He closed his eyes at the thought. Some whispers were heard and the new information. "We've counted on Naruto-kun before, now it's his turn to count on us," Lee proclaimed. Others joined in on this small cheering. Once again ignoring the interruption, Kakashi gathered the documents and laid them out neatly in piles. Some squads were hastily assembled and sent out earlier today, however they went in blind, most without a sensory-type ninja, and hadn't had any experience with the enemy. "But now that we got more intel, your squads will replace them," Kakashi explained. They waited impatiently for more information. "We're looking for 3 possible individuals. Kisame Hashigaki carries a large club-like sword, one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist," he summarized, and he handed portfolios of him around the table. "I recognize this guy from somewhere," Guy uttered, seeing a photo of Kisame in the portfolio. "Wow, we fought him before, Guy-sensei," Tenten yelled out. "How can you forget such a shady character?" She berated the green-clad. Moving on, these are the more likely individuals. One goes by the name of Toby. Height is approximately 5.7 feet. Wears a swirling orange mask with a hole on the right eye. He handed more portfolios, detailing more. Another likely suspect is the one that helped attack this morning. Since she wasn't at the site of Naruto's disappearance, we can assume she helped in Naruto's kidnapping. The others nodded in agreement at his explanation. "There's not much known about this Kunoichi." Kasayu-sama said her name was Konan. Neck-length blue hair with an origami attached. Amber eyes with a height approximately 5.5 feet, handing the last portfolio. Kakashi-sensei, Shikamaru called out. He still had a broken leg. "Most of us are Chunin. How can we take down S-class criminals?" Even though he had, these other individuals were far more skilled and clever than the one he had fought. The one with the orange mask worried him the most, hearing of his abilities from the others. "I know, but the village is in trouble. We need every shinobi we can spare to protect it, but we must do something about Naruto," Kakashi said. "I was informed that Danzo had sent out his own Anbu Black Ops to retrieve Naruto's side," decided to add. Kakashi nodded, thankful for the help, but he was still wary of him. Danzo would kill him, then let the Akatsuki get their hands on the Kyuubi. "Right, your mission is find any information of the Akatsuki regarding Naruto, possible bases or any of these 3 individuals," he ordered. "Along with the help of the Inuzuka and Aburum clan, they'll be able to alert us of any possible information you may receive, so that we can send you back up to take out the Akatsuki and rescue Naruto." Kakashi looked at the ones close to Naruto. Iruka was present but only looked sadly at the ground the entire time. "This is your mission. Each squad will head in a particular direction, checking each town quickly. You'll set out immediately tonight. We only have 2.5 days to rescue him," Kakashi said. Everyone immediately set out, quickly gathering their gear and teammates. "We rest there," Konan said, pointing towards the nearby town. She saw the younger girl nod. She looked exhausted. Truthfully, Konan was too. Although her attempts to hide their scent from the tracker contributed. The day was ending, as evident by the evening sun, an hour away from setting. Konan noted that they both needed a new layer of clothing. The cloak, the symbol of Yahiko's dream, was ripped and shredded in some places. Some of the fabric on the bottom was burned by Toby's fire. By wearing the cloak, she would declare to the world that she was part of the Akatsuki. If she was going to sneak across the land of fire, she needed to be more inconspicuous. Luckily they had raced only through woods, and thanks to the girls avoided patrols that would recognize it. She looked towards the younger girl, and despite Conan's calm exterior, her internal side showed surprise that the younger girl was able to keep up with her. Her clothes too needed a change, as her lavender sweater displayed dried blood and a visible hole on her abdomen. They approached the town, and Konan took off her cloak to not attract attention. She quickly folded it and sealed it into a scroll, intent on wearing it when they got out of town. They would mostly be running through forest green books she had picked up from Naruto, and went into her tool pouch. She didn't need to attract any attention from wearing the cloak. "I suggest we get a change of clothes," Konan proposed. The girl nodded in agreement. Konan found out she was a timid girl and stuttered a bit, mostly when it involved Naruto. They hardly talked on the way here, saving their energy for their run. "I'll pay for our expenses," she added. She had an abundance of ryo from the Akatsuki. They left suddenly from the leaf, so she didn't expect her to have any money. Hinata looked at the woman beside her. She didn't quite expect her to wear such provocative clothing under the Akatsuki cloak. She assumed she took it off to not attract unwanted attention. Although she would attract another kind of unwanted attention, at least to Hinata. She noted a green book that she put into her tool pouch. She wore a navy blue robe. Most of her back was exposed along with her shoulders and belly. The lateral part of her breasts being exposed sealed the deal for Hinata. She could never even think about wearing such clothing. Before we enter, scout the town for any shinobi, she suggested. Hinata quickly complied, and after a few minutes found no one with any ninja-like chakra networks. She quickly passed on this information to her now partner. Good, let's use the transformation so no one recognizes us. Both performed that, and Conan transformed into a black-haired woman wearing a more conservative yukata, and Hinata transformed into a blonde-haired teen with blue eyes, also wearing a yukata. Both looked unremarkable. Conan was a bit impressed at how forgettable person she transformed into, minus the eyes. They fit into a crowd, no one would remember their faces, which was needed. Hinata followed closely behind her, afraid to lose her. They quickly entered a series of stores, gathering needed gear and essentials. Hinata was surprised at the large number of paper bombs she bought for herself, but made no comment and proceeded into another store. After searching and trying on their preferred change of clothes, Conan bought all the gear and clothes for them both, along with 3 dark red cloaks with a similar style to the Akatsuki's, with the exception there was no design. She sealed the cloaks away as they exited the store, and walked towards a nearby hotel. Some Konoha ninja just entered the town, she said quietly. It wasn't anyone she had recognized. Let us get out of sight. Both Kunoichi entered the hotel, and after paying higher than extra, and a personal bribe that convinced the person in the front desk to not tell anyone that they were present. They reached their room. It was small and simple, but it didn't matter. 2 beds were sitting at opposite ends in the corner of the room, a bathroom immediately to the left when you entered. A knee-high table sat in between the beds. I'll get us something to eat, she told the midnight-haired teen. She created a paper clone, gave it some ryo and sent it off. Conan-san? She asked. They had dissipated their transformation. Conan looked up towards her. What happened earlier today? Conan thought for a moment, seating herself around the table. Hinata did the same and listened to her recalling the earlier events. Hinata watched as she saw subdued sorrow fill her eyes. She wasn't like the other Akatsuki she had heard about, in fact she seemed to value peace. Flashback. Conan watched in silent sorrow as life left the eyes of her childhood friend. Naruto Uzumaki stood in silence. He had eyes full of thanks, but also saw a bit of sadness. Perhaps placing your trust in this young man was right, Nagato, she thought to herself. They stood in silence for a moment, before Conan began wrapping him with a paper-like coffin. Her eyes went white in surprise at the sudden chakra she felt. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. She quickly turned around, and saw a giant wall of fire approaching her and Naruto, far too large to escape the fireball without harm. Unprepared for the sudden onslaught, she was too slow in evading or collecting her chakra to block or redirect the attack. They approached quickly and she felt the wave of heat scorching her skin, and the brightness made her close her eyes. She didn't feel the pain she expected. Instead, she felt a protective embrace, and her feet left the ground as she was thrown through air. She felt some of her cloak singe and some of her skin blister at the heat. The cry of agony filled her ears, except it wasn't from her. She felt the contact of hitting the ground, and opened her eyes to see that she was actually saved from Naruto himself. Naruto, are you okay? She said quickly. She felt the adrenaline course through her, at the little pain she felt, and at the sudden danger that still lurked around. She quickly climbed off his chest and got ready for battle. Why did you try to save me? She questioned. What kind of hero would I be? If I couldn't save a damsel in distress, he joked. She assumed it was a coping habit of trying to rid himself of the pain that was already healing. Well, aren't you the funny one, Naruto Uzumaki? She heard the deep familiar voice of him. He appeared through the smoke, standing before them. Right beside Nagato's corpse. Toby, her teeth clenched in feigned anger. Here for Nagato's already, I see. Not quite, but yes, Toby simply replied. Reaching for him, before she could react, Naruto was already moving. I won't let you. He yelled out, launching a clone with a bright circular sphere in his hand straight towards him. The clone simply passed through, but it gave Conan the opportunity to continuously throw paper shuriken towards him. All the attacks simply passed through him, but he could not teleport his intended target. He backed off from their approach. Naruto can't do that for an extended time, she quickly explained. 5 minutes, she finished. Naruto nodded, but she noted he was exhausted from his fight with the 6 paths of pain. Gonna need you to protect me. Will I collect nature energy? Got it, as he said through panting breaths. She nodded in understanding. Give me 2 minutes and quickly stand still. My, you really are quite the interesting boy, aren't you? Getting Nagato and Conan to betray me like this, he commented. That is quite peculiar for a hothead like you to be standing so eerily still, he finished, but got no response from the intense concentration of Naruto. Your opponent is Toby, Conan replied. Quickly sending more paper shuriken in his direction. As it phased through, she quickly made numerous paper clones laced with paper bombs, and sent them along his direction. Large numbers of explosions filled the air, and she felt the dust and rock hit her clothing and cloud the air. She felt the drain on her chakra with the technique. If she hadn't fought today, she would be far more efficient and would be able to use what she wanted to use. At least she bought valuable time for Naruto to turn into Sage mode, but it looked like he needed more time. As the explosions continued and stopped, Toby was completely unharmed. Conan had run out of paper bombs to fill any more clones. Conan, I can be quite reasonable, so I'll let you live and return Nagato's body, if you help me capture what he offered. Never, she replied calmly. Shame. She sent more paper shuriken towards him. Oddly, he didn't dodge it, and the numerous shuriken pierced him. She felt the odd reality slightly distort. She quickly forms the sign to release herself. As she did, he appeared right in front of her. He quickly reached out and began to choke her. She felt the pressure on her throat, making it hard to breathe. Pain filled her as she struggled to break out of his tightening grasp. She was able to make out, and she felt her sight distort in a spiral. She gave in to her demise. A loud screeching sound was heard, and she felt the tightness around her throat dissipate. She started to fall and expected to meet the ground, but she once again felt the safeness as something carried her. She coughed repeatedly and breathed in deeply too quickly to rid of the blackness around the edges of her eyes. A loud explosion was heard. Don't touch her. Hearing Naruto yell out, she was gently lowered to the ground, still trying to recover. I didn't expect you to throw the Rasengan variant or for it to expand, she heard him say. Quite the number of attacks too, he finished as he looked back at the explosion. Conan recovered, and shakily brought her to stand. It must have been that you defeated Kakazu, with he quickly disappeared. She looked at Naruto, to ask where he was when she saw Toby quickly reappear behind him, attempting to touch him to use his jutsu. Her warnings were unneeded as Naruto with inhuman reflexes lashed out at him. He was sent flying through the air, and he hit against a large rock harshly, fracturing it, and she heard the shattering bones. It's done, Naruto replied. She breathed a quiet sigh in relief at his defeat. She was quite amazed at the skill Naruto had displayed, along with the power of his attack. She heard him gasp and wondered why, when she saw his body disappear. She thought it was but the rock stayed in its form, and she felt nothing that was like it. She felt a blade press against her neck. Naruto turned quickly to face her. I guess I severely underestimated you. You're the second person to hit me. He praised. She saw Naruto twitch in anger, and he felt the blade press harder against her neck. He calmed down at this. Using Izanagi, I thought I never had to resort to that. She heard him quietly whisper. Sage mode is quite the, using chakra in conjunction with physical attacks is quite the technique I didn't expect. Pax. Quite the punch, she mentions towards the rock. Let her go. Naruto threatened. She could feel some of the Kyuubi's chakra leaking out. Oh, I will if you come with me quietly, he offered. He quickly calmed down. She saw the seriousness in his eyes at the offer. He's lying, she yelled out. She wanted to move, but she could hardly struggle to move an inch, being held with an iron grip. Not at all, Conan, you are helping me after all, he suggested, although I'll just dispose of Nagato for such disobedience. She felt it sick at his words. Surely Naruto wouldn't even. I'll do it, Naruto complied. She stared wide-eyed at him. She felt betrayed. He was supposed to bring peace. The orange tint around his eyes disappeared. Don't, she couldn't hardly speak. Her pleas came out a mere whisper. It was ignored. I knew you would listen to the reason. She felt pain in her head, sudden dizziness, and blackness started to consume her. She felt the ground hit her knees and palms. She willed herself to not black out. She looked up at the blonde with his striking blue eyes. You'll die, she said, looking towards him. What kind of hero? Let someone die, you know, she heard him say. Conan watched as Toby knocked him unconscious with a blow to the head. He slumped to the ground. She heard something above her dissipate, a shadow clone, she presumed. She tried to get up on her feet, but she fell down. She watched helplessly as Naruto disappeared before her eyes, along with Nagato. Thanks for your help, Conan, as he disappeared without a trace. Much too slowly for her liking, she recovered. Remembering that they were near the village, she had to get away before they saw her. She saw a green book on the ground that Naruto must have left behind. Remembering it earlier, she quickly picked it up and pocketed it in her cloak. Her attempted sprinting brought her to the ground. Quickly thinking, the only logical plan was to hide, and hope she wasn't found. Flashback ends. I don't quite understand why he did that, as she finished retelling what had occurred. He held the last. He would have potentially saved the world if he hadn't let me live. She finished. That's who he is, Hinata said. She saw her confusion in her eyes over Naruto. She didn't quite know him as well as she did. Conan looked at the young leaf Kunoichi, wanting it to be explained. He protects people he considers precious, even at the cost of his only life, she explained. I see, Conan replied slowly. Precious had sounded a bit foreign, especially since she had helped in murdering Jiraiya. He really is forgiving. There were only 5 other people in her life that considered her precious or were precious to her. All were dead. He never gives up. It's why I love him, Hinata said once again. She smiled slightly. Conan couldn't help but return the gesture. I see, then you've chosen a wonderful lover, Conan said. In her stoic demeanor. What? Hinata recoiled. Conan watched as a rosy-colored tint rose to her face. The smallest of blushes could be told because of her pale complexion. She watched in curiosity as she stammered on her words. Are you two not together? she asked. She shook her head in embarrassment. Oh, I assumed because Nagato made a comment about the both of you she apologized. She took a few deep breaths to calm herself. She is quite the timid individual. Gradually her flushing face lessened. What sort of comment? She asked. About love and sacrifice, and about how it breeds hatred. She closed her eyes. She didn't like to talk about the past. His rage consumed him. He nearly transformed into the Kyuubi because of you. Conan initially thought he was able to control it, but he hadn't used the chakra at all against Tobi. Hinata gasped. She heard about him transforming, but nearly turning into it because of her. It brought shivers to her spine. Let us stop talking about past events, only the future matters now, Conan suggested, leaving no room for argument. Hi, she agreed. A knock on the door was heard. Hinata answered it. A waiter brought in a tray of food, setting it upon the table, and quickly left, since the food was already paid for. There were several containers of food, including rice, grilled fish, and red bean soup. Hinata's empty stomach growled in hunger. She realized she hadn't eaten since early morning, especially after running all day. She sat herself back down with Conan. I wasn't quite sure what you liked, Conan said as she set some servings for herself. This is alright, grabbing a bowl of red bean soup. They sat in comfortable silence, while they ate their food politely. Hinata thought about the irony of a former Akatsuki member rescuing A. She too was an unlikely candidate for partnering up with this woman. It was a bit unusual that she decided to place her trust in her so quickly. Their desire to save him must have overcame her. It was too late to go back now. They'll be looking for you, right? Hinata asked the amber-eyed woman. Hi, they most likely assumed I had helped in the kidnapping with Naruto-san, she replied. We'll be getting no help then, correct? We also can't risk getting captured or slowed down. They'll interrogate me, and we won't be able to reach him in time. Hinata gulped at the thought of what would happen if she did. But I'm certain with my skills, we won't run into trouble at all. Hinata relaxed at this. We can't fail, Hinata proclaimed. Conan saw the fiery determination in her eyes. It reminded her of the kind of eyes Naruto showed when both he and Nagato talked. It's not even a possibility. Naruto hated this. He hated everything. He didn't know how long he'd been yelling at this endless sword. Doubt filled his mind. Everywhere he went, everything he thought. He just wanted someone to be there. It would be far better than this torturous loneliness. He's my biggest fear. People appeared before him. He looked hopefully at them. Happy that he finally wasn't alone. Except, they didn't acknowledge him. They didn't look at him, the people looked past him. If they did, they looked with fear, contempt, and hate. Naruto crawled up into a bowl. There were people now, except he was still alone. What was worse, knowing that you're alone with nobody around, or being completely alone with everyone around, was only reminded of his past. He hated it. Naruto crawled into a bowl. Everything got progressively worse. There was not just the loneliness anymore. There was near overwhelming hate. It wanted to consume him. It hung over him, waiting for his will to shatter. He wanted it to go away, but his strength continuously left him. Was there anyone? The darkness moved closer. Was there no one? Naruto was on his last legs. He couldn't fight it anymore. He didn't want to anymore. He didn't care anymore. How could someone love him? The abyss raced towards him. Because I love you. The hatred stopped temporarily. How could she love me? They crept forward as doubt started to plague him. Why? He asked himself. She doesn't love me. It started creeping faster. A lie. It reached him, and started eating at him. He didn't think he would feel anything, but he felt anger. Absolute hatred. Not towards her but himself, at his weakness, at giving up. Then why did she do it? More doubt entered his mind to refuse this. He fought it tooth and nail. Hinata's not like that at all. Pushing the hatred back, he met with fierce resistance. She's the kindest, most gentle person I've ever met. He continued to fight it, pushing it further and further away. She'd never lie. She's not that kind of person. He yelled out. He started to remember all of the people who were there. His friends were there now, and the people who he considered precious, people who had passed, were present as well. Jiraiya, Kakashi, Tsunade. He met fierce resistance as he met the hatred at his source. He wondered if any of them considered him precious. The hatred pushed him back. It did not want to fade away. No, Nagato, Jiraiya, Dad, Conan, Hinata. He started pushing back, where the hatred was strongest. He couldn't give up, not ever. They believed in me and I never. He started dispelling the darkness. It started disappearing. I never go back on my word. The mass of hatred dissipated. Leaving forever. That's my ninja way. Several dark clouds hung overhead, threatening to rain. Warm rays of the late afternoon sun occasionally passed through. It was pleasant compared to the cold air that breezed through the clearings and trails that Tsukanoichi walked through. Hinata and Conan walked side by side on an unused path, taking a small break from running. They have been trying to reach Naruto for 2 days now. Hinata reached for her neck, but the hit I ate wasn't there, as it would have given her away. Her own eyes were famous as well, so she put on a minor to deter any curious civilians. They wouldn't have worked against any experienced shinobi. It was necessary, in order to save Naruto. They couldn't risk getting captured. Since they were away from civilization, she took off her. She looked at the blue-haired woman beside her. She still wore the Akatsuki cloak. Hinata questioned her judgment as she still loyal. She only had to hope it was something else. A slight noise brought both out of their thoughts. Jump! Conan quickly yelled out. Both Kunoichi easily avoided a few shuriken thrown their way. They quickly turned around to face the threat from the direction of the thrown weapons. Along with a nin dog, 5 members of the Anbu Black Ops appeared before them. They got into a battle-ready stance. Blue hair in the Akatsuki cloak matches the portfolio, an emotionless voice said. The civilians were useful, another said. They sized up both of their opponents, and Hinata noted one of them was a user. Those eyes and the unmarked forehead, the heiress, he commented quite stoically. Oh no, Hinata whispered. Concentrate, Conan whispered to the girl. We must get rid of the nin dog. Covering our scent takes time to get into effect. Hinata nodded and got into her gentle fist stance, steeling herself for the incoming fight. We'll keep them alive if you wish, Hinata nodded. She would be able to return to the village easier. The traitor working with the Akatsuki deserves to die. The lack of emotion that they spoke in brought a slight shiver to Hinata. These are no regular Anbu. Each side stood tensely, waiting for the other to attack. Hinata let out a shaky breath and activated her. The woman beside her stood calmly, still. She noted all of them here were confident in their abilities, their heartbeats slow, no slight twitching in their muscles. Hinata could feel her own heart beating rapidly, her own lip trembling in slight fear. She didn't have enough experience to match them. For Naruto-kun, far too quickly for her own liking, one of them closed the distance between them, the other 3 going after Conan, the last one guarding the nin dog. Her opponent moved quickly, and Hinata dodged swift strikes, staying a distance away from his blade. She pulled out her own kunai to deflect an attack towards her face, quickly let go of the kunai, and made a few of her own attacks with her Suddenly, with much more speed, they lunged forward with an overhead strike. Hinata was too slow to react to the sudden burst. She clumsily was able to deflect it, but he took advantage, and quickly delivered 3 more strikes. Hinata deflected a slice when he brought his sword back up. The other strike was swift, and was aimed towards her neck, but Hinata blocked it. It had much more power in it, and she temporarily lost her foothold. She swayed back, unable to defend herself. Seeing his chance, he was about to deliver the killing blow, but she was able to launch herself away. With not enough power to her step, she had rolled onto her knees. Not deterred by her escape, he moved swiftly to end her with another overhead slash. Hinata saw the blade come down. With no weapon in her hands, she couldn't block it. She rolled to the right, seeing Conan. A paper shuriken hit the blade with enough force to change its descent to Hinata's left. It barely missed her. She was on her feet before he recovered. I'm sorry for this, but this is for Naruto-kun. She ruthlessly attacked him with all her might, closing his vital chakra points to stop his movement. He slumped to the ground, incapacitated. She quickly scanned around the battlefield, ready for more trouble. Hinata saw that Conan had dealt with 2 of them already, but the other one was being more careful. Hinata gasped when she saw more approaching from the southeast. More squads are coming 900 meters, Conan-san. They began to retreat at her call out, along with the nin dog. Don't let the nin dog get away, Conan simply replied. She sent more paper shuriken towards them, uncaring if they got killed. Hinata could only agree at her hidden meaning. Rescuing Naruto was far more important. The paper shuriken was destroyed by a fire. She jumped into the air for a clear shot, hoping her next would work. It cannot end like this. 8 trigrams vacuum air palm. She yelled out. The compressed air burst careening towards them like a bullet. It hit the 2 nin dog harshly. Unprepared for the deadly quick attack, they slammed against the ground. Hinata landed and saw no movement come from them. Conan wasn't hesitant to finish off the nin dog with a few paper shuriken. Hinata looked away. It's necessary. Did the other group have an nin dog with them? She asked, turning towards Hinata. She shook her head, and Conan nodded. I don't want to take risks. Give me your 8 or pieces of your clothing. Hinata reached inside her tool pouch, and quickly gave it to Conan. She watched as she ripped off the fabric connected to the metal piece. She also ripped off a large piece of her Akatsuki cloak. She created paper clones of them and gave them several pieces of each, and sent them off in different directions. Where are they coming from? Southeast, Hinata replied quickly, pointing a finger in the direction. Hinata sensed the urgency in her tone. She created numerous paper clones and sent them along. Hinata assumed it was only a diversionary tactic for their escape. Conan returned what was left of her 8. Run quickly, Conan said. She began sprinting off the path they were on. Hinata quickly complied and followed her and headed northeast through the woods. Their pace was quick and urgent. Hinata felt her muscles ache when their short break interrupted. We run at this pace until dusk, the amber-eyed Kunoichi added. Hinata nodded. She wholeheartedly agreed. It would mean they would get closer to saving him. She felt her limbs renew at the thought. Thank you, Conan-san, she said. Thanking her for interfering with her fight. We're partners, Hinata-san, she simply stated. No matter how temporary. What's that saying go again? Naruto thought about it for a moment, trying to recall the specific words. Out of something and into the pan. That sounds stupid, he called out. He wondered if the ever-shrinking fox heard him. Naruto lies down on the water in the sewer-like room, staring at nothing in particular. He remembered everything after he had gotten out of that horrid white abyss. It didn't bring much comfort to Naruto. I wonder if Gar saw the same. It wasn't a very pleasant experience, not one he ever wanted to experience again. Now he simply had too much time to think and he never thought this. Naruto simply wished for it to end already. Although I died, that's a bad thing. The village may not like me, but all that matters is my friends. He declared as he raised his fist into the air. He let it fall to the ground a moment later. He thought about all the friends he had made over the years. All his victories. All his regrets and failures. He didn't regret dying trying to save someone. Not one bit, he proclaimed. At least she was pretty, he sighed. A pretty girl saved me, it's only right that I get to save one too. He thought a lot about that day. The last day kept replaying in his mind. Sorry, Hinata. He never would bring peace that he'd been entrusted with. Dad. His words to him came racing by. He realized something his dad had said. Naruto decided to look at the cage. A mere look to his left. Oh, you have a name? He asked the fox. Why do you want to know? The fox replied. He decided to be more lenient with his. Well, after thinking so damn much I thought, hey, he's gotta have a name, you can't just be called that, Naruto replied, still lying down. Kyuubi stayed silent and looked through the bars of his prison. Searching for anything that Naruto knew about his lineage. Come on, I'm going to die, right? If I'm going to die, I want to know your name, since these Akatsuki got us, Naruto said to him. Kyuubi saw no deceit, he truly did think it. He would decide to humor him after all. Kurama, he finally replied. I'm sorry I failed, Kurama. He apologized. Kurama was a bit surprised at that. He searched, but found nothing but sincerity in his voice. He's not smart enough to plan ahead anyway. He had silently watched Naruto since he was a child, more so when he became a ninja. I would be free if the fourth didn't seal me back, Kurama jabbed at him, expecting his usual fiery reply. Yeah, maybe you could have gone free now. Kurama has been taken back. But you didn't. It's all in the past now. Perhaps there was one thing I regret. Kurama was now interested in what he had to say. We could have taken down that masked man together as a team. Kurama chuckled at his suggestion. Work with you, you are a funny one. Kurama chuckled some more. I'm serious. Naruto turned away, his back facing him. Do the other ones like you have names too? Kurama was a bit bewildered. I hate them. You can't always have hated Kurama. He didn't hear any response from the fox, so he continued. Nagato said love breeds sacrifice as well as hate. You got your hate from somewhere, Kurama. He heard the growling from the fox. He decided to back off from his questioning. I guess I wish I could have taken your hate away, he finished. Kurama watched Naruto, searching intently. What would you have done? If you somehow got out without me, Kurama asked, curiously. I'd rescue you, rescue the other as well, and bring peace to the shinobi world. He declared once again. His fist in the air, he slumped it back down. Except I'm going to die. At least the Akatsuki was nice enough for me to accept it, he joked. The sun hung low in the horizon, marking the end of another day. Dark clouds hung over, creating a dying drizzle over the landscape. Two individuals slowly made their way into a cave, soaked from the hours of running in the light rain. Using the wall of the cave as support, they let themselves fall to ground, their backs to the wall. Konan and Hinata lay panting at the exertion they forced themselves to go through. Sweat beads down their faces as they tried to control their labored breathing. The muscles in their limbs ached and shook in protest at their exertion. After several long minutes, they finally were able to calm themselves. We were lucky, they were overconfident, and they paid for their mistakes, Konan commented. She closed her eyes for a quick moment. They were quite skilled, she doubted she could face a six-man team at once. They shouldn't be able to track either, she added. It was fortunate it started raining. Hinata breathed out. Konan saw that she was exhausted from the hours of sprinting they had endured. Konan was too truthful. The sprinting, the quick skirmish with hiding their tracks, and the dozens of paper clones she made, had left her gasping for air. She was good, yes, but she didn't have the physical strength or the stamina that Nagato had. The only one who could match the massive amount of chakra and stamina would have been Naruto. She saw Hinata activate her. I don't see anyone within a 10 kilometers radius, she replied after a few minutes of searching. Konan nodded at her assessment, quite useful for infiltration. How far are we from Naruto-kun? Konan took a moment to figure out how close they were. We're hours away actually, she replied, in her usual calm tone. She saw her questioning eyes. We're in no condition to fight, she finished. Hinata, eyes downcasted in worry, shame and anger. Both of us aren't capable of fighting. She uttered once again, trying to reassure her. She saw her nod, so she left it at that. If Toby should have gotten help today would be the deadline. She didn't voice these doubts. They had pushed themselves far, and she wouldn't be able to fight her all against Toby for a distraction. She decided to put away these thoughts. Since you've been spotted with me, you do know what that means, she said to the pale girl. I'll be a rogue ninja, but I'll do anything to save him, she replied back. Konan nodded in approval. Can I ask something about Konan-san? You may. Why do you continue to wear that Akatsuki cloak? She asked. Konan looked away for a moment. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude, Hinata apologized. Konan thought for a moment. I was responsible for those showing up. She took a deep quiet breath. It's quite alright. It's my fault we got spotted by those Konan, she replied. Not at all, I should have been searching for any ninja, the midnight-haired girl said. Konan looked at her thoughtfully. Then I guess we should be more diligent next time. But to answer your question, Hinata nodded in agreement and waited patiently. It took her a few moments to reply. It was once designed by a precious person of mine. He wanted peace for the world, and Naruto-san now inherited those ideals. She finished, erasing awful memories from before. I see, thank you for sharing that with me, Konan-san, she thanked me. Konan saw her shiver from the cold. She wore a damp pullover pale lavender sweater, along with white on the sleeves ending at the shoulders. Konan looked at her tarnished cloak she wore, the running, and the elements had considerably damaged it. It had a large hole on the right side of her waist, some of the fabric at the bottom began unthreading. She couldn't wear it anymore, not unless she wanted to destroy it more. She picked herself up and reached in a small pack she had carried since Naruto had been taken. She took out a scroll it held within. Hinata watched in interest, she wondered what she was doing. She got her answer as she unsealed the scroll, and 3 dark red cloaks appeared. She picked up the 2 smaller ones and handed one to her. Take it, your sweater is wet and you need to keep warm, since we won't make a fire. She took it and saw Konan take off her own, and store it with the other cloak she assumed was for Naruto. Of course she quickly put it on, the cloak covered her arms and hands, hiding them. The bottom fabric just reached her shins. She found out the cloak had a large hood, enough to hide her eyes, which she was thankful for, since any ninja could tell she was a. She would need it for the trek back. Since she's now a rogue ninja, hopefully not for long. We can't risk going into the nearby town, so we'll stay here for tonight, Konan commented. Hinata nodded at the suggestion. She sat back down, the cloak was thick and comfortable. I'll take the first watch. Hinata hardly heard her, the sprint had left her exhausted as she fell asleep, thinking of Naruto. I hope we're not too late. Konan stood by waiting for the day to arrive. What will happen, I wonder? Fukasaku-sama, have you found anything? Kakashi hoped for anything, that he would nod, that he would say that he's alive. They rescued Naruto, his sensei's student. His hopes were crushed when the old sage shook his head sorrowfully. Pain filled him, and he clutched harder to the edge of the table. Hatred filled him, towards the masked man. Towards himself at his immense failure. Is this what Minato-sensei felt when, not even with the help of the toads, Kakashi commented with an emotionless voice. The Onizukas, Aburams, and the Hyugas couldn't. Kakashi closed his eyes. He felt the same pain when Obito passed, when Rin had passed. Minato-sensei. No one found him. Every squad had reported in, no findings, no trace was found of the Akatsuki. He walked slowly outside the tent. The day had ended, the bright crescent moon hung above, filling the village with vast darkness, like a black abyss. Call all squads, we have a village to protect. He closed his eyes, nodded in front of the tent, and hurried to send messenger hawks and the like. How am I supposed to tell them? Kakashi thought to himself. Their mission had failed. For everyone here, the ones who were sent out, all had the personal desire to rescue him. It wasn't just another mission to fulfill. Naruto didn't even get to see the cheers everyone had planned for him. Kakashi wanted to kill the man. He didn't get to see everyone was proud of him. Within a cave, a ritual was being performed. 7 individuals stood atop the fingers of a mysterious statue. Sasuke cut his chakra link to the statue. He felt a little tired. This stupid thing is finally over. The others around him had cut theirs too. Sasuke smirked as the body fell from the height. The chakra link no longer holds him. The one who called himself Madara jumped down below to check on him. Sasuke wanted to check out why he was so curious about a weakling. Jumping down below to join him. What's so interesting about him? He's dead, isn't he? Sasuke asked, bored. Just making sure. He leaned down to check for a pulse in case the Sharingan missed something. What makes you so wary? The dog couldn't trick a Sharingan. Sasuke lightly kicked the legs of the dead body of Naruto. I would have preferred to kill him myself. Guess you can't get everything. He felt annoyed at his disregard for answering him. Interesting guess, a half one doesn't cut it then. I'm a bit disappointed, Tobi commented. What do you mean? Sasuke asked, wanting some answers. Nothing you should be concerned about. He stood back up. Whatever, I'll be going back to Konoha to get rid of the vermin, Sasuke said, walking to the entrance. A 5K summit is being convened. Sasuke ignored him, and continued on walking. Danzo will be there as Sasuke stopped, his Sharingan flaring at the mention of the name. Where? He asked coldly. In the land of iron, 7 days from now, Tobi replied. Sujetsu, Karen, Jugo, let's go, all quickly complied, jumping off the hands and quickly following him. White Zetsu will help you infiltrate when you get to the border, was the last thing Sasuke heard when he walked into the hall. The morning bright sun crept over the landscape. The air felt damp, droplets of water hanging onto leaves and plants from yesterday's evening rain. The rays of sunlight shone upon the forest, as 2 individuals stealthily approached their destination. The forest they were in was alive, numerous wildlife and insects pranced about. Birds sang their early morning song in preparation for the coming day. Despite the liveliness of the forest, both blue-haired Kunoichi walked silently, both in anticipation and anxiety. This is where they rescue what is precious to them. Hinata and Konan crept along towards where the Akatsuki base was located. Since Konan had said there was a possibility there was a scout posted around the area, Hinata kept her Byakugan active, and despite her, they moved slowly. Infiltration and a surprise attack would ensure the best results. Hinata could feel the blood flowing through her veins, her heart beating increasing with each and every step they took towards the base. With her eyes, she didn't see anything that would be a stronghold. Conan-san, where is this base? Hinata asked quietly. She restrained herself from jumping into any conclusions, she had to trust her. I'm not surprised you can't see it. The base was mostly likely concealed with a ceiling to stop curious eyes like yours from discovering it, she replied calmly. I see, the pale-eyed girl responding. She heard about the trap used from a previous Akatsuki base. It makes sense, she decided to voice her concern. Will there be any traps? She asked. No, since I have this. Conan showed her a ring that was worn on her middle finger on her right hand. This will allow us to bypass traps that would have been triggered without it, Conan finished. Hinata nodded at her explanation, and both proceeded even closer to the base. Both prepared themselves for any possible ambushes. Hinata kept constantly scanning around looking for anything out of the ordinary. She noted that despite the calm exterior that Conan showed, she too felt anxious. Conan's heart was beating a bit faster than normal, and some of her movements were rigid. It made Hinata feel more uneasy. Conan didn't display any sort of these symptoms when they were fighting against the Anbu yesterday. Conan stopped in front of a rock wall. Hinata noticed a small ceiling tag on it. This base must be inside of this rock cliff. Listening to what Hinata heard Conan say, she turned to look at her. When we rescue Naruto-san, you will leave right away with him, and I will distract them for as long as possible. Hinata gasped at such a suggestion. Conan-san, what about you? Conan closed her eyes for a moment. We must do what we possibly can for Naruto-san. She opened her eyes and Hinata saw the determination and acceptance within them. She could only nod. Hinata would have done the same as well. Conan turned back to the boulder. Hinata watched as she touched the rock with the ring on her finger. After a moment the boulder loudly rolled inside the base, showing them a path. Conan took a careful step inside, and Hinata followed too. See anything more now that we're inside? She asked. No, I cannot. She gulped. Her heart beat erratically being inside the base of S-rank ninjas. She took small comfort in being the company of one, knowing she was going to sacrifice herself to save him. Her eyes darted everywhere with feeling so blind as she couldn't see through any walls. They passed through the flat rock floors and walls as some lanterns lit up the hallways. Conan stopped right before a hall after many turns. Hinata felt herself breathing deeply and quickly at the tension she felt. Conan cautiously looked down the hall, slightly poking her head to see if anything was waiting for them. Hugging the wall, Hinata followed her and mimicked her silent and careful steps down the hall. She saw that the hall led to a large room. Each step she took, she noticed Conan's heart beating faster. Hinata tried to control her breathing by biting her lips. It didn't have the desired effect. Her limbs started to shake and she couldn't take it anymore and deactivated her. She felt herself calm a bit, and the quiet process down the hall felt like a lifetime. Suddenly they stopped at the edge leading into the room. She watched as Conan peered over again. She froze. After an eternity for Hinata she peeked for herself. She quickly scanned the room, but saw nothing at first. Then she saw a lone body on the floor. The color of orange was seen. Naruto, she whispered silently. She took a few steps towards the hall, uncaring if there were any Akatsuki around. Conan silently followed behind. Hinata slowly walked towards him. The cloak she wore weighed considerably each time she took a step. No, she felt her limbs starting to shake, and lips trembling. Not in fear, but in despair. With each and every step she took towards him, the crushing reality came crashing down repeatedly. She reached him, his face in full view. He looked so peaceful. Her knees came flying down, and she knelt beside him. She felt her throat constrict harshly. Her tears came rushing down, blurring her vision. She didn't care. Because he was dead, right before her eyes. She sobbed over him, tears wetting his worn jacket, the jacket she loved seeing him in. A few whimpers escaped from her. Conan closed her eyes in failure. At Hinata's realization that she would never see one of his brilliant smiles ever again. She lets her loud sobs be heard for a moment before digging herself into his jacket. He clutched his jacket desperately. Don't cry, Nada, she heard. Her eyes shot open. She felt a warm hand over hers. In denial she heard him. She got up and looked in his cerulean blue eyes. Cerulean eyes full of life. Look at those two beautiful angels. He smiled weakly. His voice cracked. Naruto-kun. She cried. No one could copy those eyes of his. She quickly went to support him by putting his head and shoulders over her lap. More tears fell from her face in happiness that it really was him. Hey, he flashed another weak smile. Hinata, in her happiness, quickly enveloped his lips with hers. It was quick and desperate. She moved his lips with hers, and Naruto weakly complied. Hinata noticed his mouth was dry and lips cracked. She quickly retreated her kiss and ignored her blush. Tastes so good, he added. Ignoring another deep blush at the comment, she turned to Conan, who already had a bottle full of water held towards her. Thank you. She reached for it with a free hand, and carefully made sure he didn't drown in it. After motherly caring for him for a few minutes and draining an entire bottle, he looked significantly better. Hinata watched as he breathed slowly. Her throat still felt sore, and her lips trembled from his well-being. I'm so happy you're okay, Naruto-kun. He smiled slightly more than last time. His eyes closed in exhaustion. "I want that other good-tasting stuff," he said. Hinata blushed crimson, her complexion contrasting with it at his request. She hesitantly leant down once more, much more timidly than last time. Despite his lack of color to his face, the subdued look in his eyes, dirt smudged in several places on his face, Hinata thought he was as handsome as ever. Her lips trembled as she closed the distance between their lips. He surprisingly closed the short distance, as Hinata once again felt his lips slowly move with hers. They shared their kiss slowly, passionately, and Hinata clutched his jacket and hair that found themselves there. She felt his tongue slowly glide along her lips, tasting her. Hinata found herself not breathing and reluctantly released the kiss. She took in deep breaths to calm herself. He hummed in delight. Hinata's heart started beating furiously, and the blush deepened as he licked his lips. She let out a shaky breath at the turnaround of her emotions. She hovered protectively over him. "I apologize for breaking such an intimate moment, but we must move before anyone finds us here," Conan inputted. She had looked around on guard in case of an ambush. Of course Hinata blushed and disappeared after another moment, getting back to reality. After all, they still might be in danger. "Can you carry him?" she asked. She wasn't sure she could comfortably carry him, or be able to protect him if they were suddenly attacked or even concentrate at all with him. Conan would be able to react faster with him. "As you wish," Hinata said. She helped her slowly pick him up. He seemed to try and help too, but he started breathing hard at the exertion. Ramen would taste amazing right now," he commented slowly. After recovering from his breath, he still had his eyes half closed. Conan handed her a small pack for Hinata to carry. "He seems quite delirious," Conan added, seeing him talk about ramen. She saw the younger girl nod in agreement, her Byakugan flaring. Conan positioned herself under him, and supported him with a piggyback. Making sure she was comfortable and herself too, she started carrying him towards the exit of the base. "You will take point, Hinata-san." She quickly complied and went ahead to start checking the hulls for any sign of enemies. Meanwhile Naruto decided to get a bit more comfortable. "You're very warm," he said softly, tightening his grip around her. Conan only had to grunt at the comment. She walked down more halls, getting close to the exit, but still on guard for any sudden attack. "Really soft too," as he pushed his right cheek against her left. "You're not entirely yourself, Naruto-san," she commented, trying to ignore his actions and words. "But you my angel too," as he rubbed his cheek affectionately with hers. Conan was a bit taken back once again by the comment and sudden show of affection. It was odd that she was being called that more intimately outside of a megagir. Ignoring him once again, they finally reached outside, and Conan quickly sealed the door to the base. "We will return back to the cave quickly," Conan commented. "Keep a constant watch with Yukike, Hinata-san." She nodded, and they quickly went full speed towards where they had last camped. Halfway there, Naruto decided to continue what he had been doing before. Conan had thought he was asleep, evident by his deep calming breathing. It was only when he spoke it was clear he was not. "You smell nice," he said nonchalantly, taking deep inhales. Conan ignored the feeling. I wonder she tried to ignore him, but with his husky voice right in her ears, it was hard to. A few at the vibrations she felt, she clearly felt him hum, and contentment tastes just as good as nada. As time Conan couldn't ignore it, as a faint blush filled her cheeks. It deepened more when he slightly reached down just above her chest. A slight snore filled her ears as he fell peacefully asleep. 4 hours earlier, Naruto slowly opened his eyes, but he was only greeted with darkness. He felt confused, he didn't know where he was. He tried moving, but his limbs didn't want. He felt as his fingers and toes twitch. At least he wasn't paralyzed. He tried to remember where he was. His throat hurt every time he breathed in, so he resided in breathing as little as possible. Water was his only thought. Naruto felt a lot more empty, he couldn't pinpoint the cause. He desperately needed water, except his body wouldn't comply with what he wanted to do. He felt entirely too weakened at the moment, he'd never felt so helpless. A few memories quickly entered his head, but flew away before he registered in his brain. He was able to collect a few. "I need someone help, Mom." He wondered if he was going to die here, after he had just survived something he was sure that would have killed him. So much for all that. Now this was going to be a death he was going to regret. He went in and out of unconsciousness. He didn't know how much time had passed, whether a few minutes, or a few days. He damned his clan's vitality. Going into and out of consciousness played on his mind again. He wasn't sure if he was dead or alive anymore. This would suck if this you go when you die. He just wanted to eat ramen right now. If he could drool he certainly would right now. His stomach aches in pain, and he decides to drop his daydream. At least he knew he was still alive. His certainty went away as soon he lost consciousness once again. This time when he opened his eyes, he found one of the most beautiful things he'd ever seen. One he recognized as Hinata. He didn't care if he died right now. If he did he wouldn't regret it, he would die happy. He noticed the angel he thought was Hinata was crying over him. Despite the pain he felt, he just had to talk, to make her stop crying. If she did, he'd be damn happy. He tried to find his voice, he raised it slightly. Happy that he found it, he pushed himself to speak. He thought that speaking was beyond his limits. "Don't cry, Nada," he pleaded, except his voice didn't want to convey the feeling. He felt his name being called out and he saw the other angel. Look at those two beautiful angels. He heard his name being called out, and felt himself being slightly supported. He felt the angel's lips on his, it felt heavenly. Her lips felt so soft and wet. It was over far too quickly. Tastes so good there was something he couldn't identify in his state. Tastes better than ramen. He felt something cold and wet enter his throat, it felt good. It was bittersweet, as whenever he swallowed whatever he assumed was water, he felt a slight pain course through his dry throat. I'm so happy you're okay, Naruto-kun. He smiled at her, happy that she was happy. What would happen to him now? Would he fade from this place? Or was he already dead? Naruto thought he might as well make the most of it. I want that other good tasting stuff he referred to. It took several long moments for her to comply. When she got closer his impatience got to him, and he forced himself to close the distance despite the pain. Once again their lips melded with one another, her lips felt so tender and loving, he tried to return to feeling with the best of his ability. He wanted more as he tasted her lips with his tongue. They parted ways, and Naruto could only taste the sweetness of her lips, the gratification he felt at the more pronounced taste. He licked his lips once more. He heard a few noises and wondered what they were. When he felt himself being picked up, he tried to help his body feel too weak. He felt another pang of pain in his stomach, and he just really wanted to eat right now. He felt himself being carried by something warm. He tightened his hold and he realized he was being carried by one of the angels. It was one he recognized as Conan. He thought about where they were bringing him. He realized he wasn't dead yet, but he was still debating whether he was dreaming or not. This would be a great dream to die with. Her skin felt so graciously soothing as he put his cheek next to hers. He heard a comment he didn't quite hear, but it felt disapproving and the light he saw was getting much brighter. Seeing the light get brighter he replied to her. But you're my angel too. As he rubbed his cheek against hers wanting to feel more of her skin. He didn't get any sort of response, but he didn't get any more comments. The light blinded him so he kept his eyes closed. Was he dead now? He felt himself being carried more, he wasn't quite sure how much time had time. He realized the source of the wonderful fragrance he had smelled. He was still being carried by the angel, and he wondered what sort of flavors she would have. He wanted to taste her too. Naruto assumed he was on a bed, a blanket draped over him. He felt something being handed to his lips, it smelled good. He opened his mouth and devoured whatever it was. He couldn't care what it tasted like because it was food. More time passed as he was slowly fed the delicious taste of something to eat. He wanted to eat more quickly, but his body didn't want to comply. So he was forced to be fed slowly. He even had more water to drink from. He opened his eyes to see the angel he saw from before. It looked really similar to Hinata. She had a spoonful of some sort of bite-sized food. He gingerly ate whatever food he was being offered. He saw the rocky walls and ceiling as he slowly took in his surroundings. The other angel he recognized as Conan entered. It was then he realized he was not dead, and that he was rescued by Hinata and Conan. He was relieved that he survived, relieved that they were okay. How did you survive? Conan asked. Many things filled his mind at once, overwhelming him. Naruto still didn't feel all that well at the moment. He decided to say whatever the first things that came to his mind. My promise is I never go back on my word. Like I said before, I'll never die until I become Hokage. Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time, till then sayonara.